if you think you're hard enough. Get it? On the radio station that gives power to the people. talkRADIO. We'll get you talking.
It's the mother of all talk shows, and we're here every Friday night between 7 and 10. It's the open university of the airwaves. It's the last free space on the mainstream media. I see that the new leader of UKIP polled the grand total of 3,400 votes. 30% of the... Why are we even talking about a man who can win the leadership of a party with 3,874 votes? But we will, and that is just a half of it.
The Mother of All Talkshows with George Galloway on talkRADIO. Listen, this guy's a nightmare. He's not a great guy, folks.
Let me get the telephone number out of the way. It's 0344 499 1000. That's 0344 499 1000. And how it works is you call us and we ring you back at an appropriate time. And then you get to speak, not just to this nation, but from nation unto nation, because we've got people listening on the internet from all corners of the world. That I can promise you. And we might even get a few calls just to establish that over the course of the next 3 hours. Now, I'm really not joking. I mean, how can you be the leader of a party, a national party, that can command attention on the televisions, on both of the television screens I'm currently looking at, with 3,874 votes in a postal ballot? It's truly unbelievable how UKIP has shrunk, and yet how much airtime it continues to command. The new leader is a Bolton from the blue. And I'm a political junkie, had never heard his name spoken. I had never heard of him until he was announced as the new leader of UKIP, when everybody expected, me included, and I had the benefit of a steer from inside, that Anne-Marie Waters, the goose stepper, the Islamophobe, the hate preacher, was going to be the new UKIP leader. In one sense, I kind of wish that she had been, because at least if Waters was in charge, UKIP would sink beneath the waves and never be seen again. As it is, a former copper, former army officer, seems like a pucker individual from the glimpse I've just had of him on the television, he's at least going to make sure that they continue to get a seat on Question Time far more often than their representation in the country deserves, and still be quoted on the news whenever an opinion such as his is called for or required by the producers to suit their agenda. But whatever he is, he ain't Nigel Farage. And I say again, as I've said for more than a year, without Nigel Farage, UKIP is nothing. Now, there are a lot of people out there listening think that that's a good thing. I'm not necessarily one of them, for a variety of reasons, but the foremost of which is that Brexit is presently being betrayed. That which 17.4 million people voted for is being systematically betrayed. I don't know where it's all going to end up, but of one thing I'm sure. These jokers, the worst platoon ever assembled since Captain Mannering at Walminster-on-Sea, when he formed a home guard to face the European foe, no bigger platoon of jokers has ever been assembled than the people who are going back and forth to Brussels and to other parts of the EU empire to negotiate our withdrawal from it. The hateful, belligerent, bullying and blackmailing partner that we now face, Herr Juncker and the other well-fed, well-upholstered Eurocrats who are demanding more and more tens of billions from us for leaving their club, are getting encouragement from a fifth column within this country, within Parliament, within the government, within the deep state, within Whitehall, within the BBC, within the Times, within the country houses of the nouveau riche. All of them are doing their best to destroy Britain's exit from the European Union. And if the Tories can get away with it, they'll go the whole hog and we'll end up neither in nor out of the European Union. And if you're neither in nor out, that means you have to keep accepting those things which were the very things which made Britain vote for Brexit. We will be talking about the Labour conference, which was a signal triumph for the Labour Party and would have been an unblemished triumph if it were not for their fifth column, if it were not for their enemy within, which, whenever the cameras were pointed in the other direction, were whispering in the ears of gullible or perhaps culpable correspondents to tell the big story that actually Labour was an anti-Semitic nest of misogynistic hate. Nothing could be further from the truth. I have known Jeremy Corbyn for almost 40 years, and the idea that Corbyn and all these others, with their background in Marxism, with their former affiliation with Trotskyism, could conceivably be anti-Semitic is a very big insult. Now, there was a brouhaha about a rally that, from what I've read, was certainly ill-advised. Some people saying that the Holocaust is a matter of debate. No, it's not a matter of debate. It ought to be a criminal offence to deny the Holocaust in Britain, as it is in several European countries. It ought to be a crime to deny the greatest crime that was ever committed over those short period of years. Something like 10 years, something like 6 million Jewish people were annihilated off the face of the earth. And if the Red Army hadn't turned the tide at Stalingrad, I think every Jewish person in Europe would have been annihilated in the course of that Holocaust. It should be a criminal offence to deny that that Holocaust took place, and equally to use the suffering of Jewish people as an excuse, as a cover, as some kind of justification for the suffering of others. Well, that's just offensive. And no good can come of this entirely contrived, fake conflation of criticism of the state of Israel with anti-Semitism and hatred of Jewish people. No good can come of that. Not for Labour and not for Jewish people either. And then there's the Scottish Labour Party leadership. There it was, sailing serenely along with two candidates, Anna Sarwar for the right and Richard Leonard for the left. Could have been a perfectly civilised contest. But as Mr. Leonard seems to be headed for a pulverising victory, well, it's all got nasty. A bit like a mirror of the earlier Corbyn election campaigns. So much so that Mr. Leonard's press officer was quoted in the week saying that Mr. Sarwar's lieutenants were talking Scottish water. Well, Scottish water that had passed through people, if you get my meaning. Still early yet. Don't want to get down and dirty. But that campaign certainly is. I'll be talking to the doyen of political scientists and psephologists, Professor John Curtis, the Professor of Politics, at my old stamping ground. Used to be in my constituency when I was a Glasgow MP, before Tony Blair expelled me and abolished my constituency, just in case. And we'll be talking about the Conservative Party conference. Yes, they're having one. Mrs. May said in the week that the Tories hadn't been ready for a snap election and were caught off guard. Wait till she finds out who was responsible for it. Wait till she finds out who called this sneaky snap election and caught the Conservative Party off guard. Oh, wait. It was her as the leader of the Conservative Party. How's she going to survive the week? There was a time when I didn't think that she would. It seemed to me inconceivable that a leader guilty of a miscalculation on such an Everestian scale, one which has effectively rendered the British government null and void on the threshold of one of its most important political tasks since the end of the Second World War, that no leader responsible for that could possibly survive. But survive she has. And the principal reason for that is, have you seen the alternatives? Have you looked at Jacob Rees-Mogg? Have you heard the desiccated calculating machine that is Philip Hammond? Have you looked under the thatch of Boris Johnson? In the Grenfell inquiry, in the continuing agony of the survivors of the inferno in Grenfell Tower, in the speech given by the leader of the Firefighters Union, who said, and he was right, that the Grenfell disaster, inferno, mass manslaughter, at least, ought to have brought the British government down, and may well yet do so. We'll be talking about China and North Korea, and we'll be talking about Tony Blair. You know, it's difficult for me to talk about Tony Blair. It's dark and lonely work, but somebody has to do it, and that's me, with a very distinguished American magazine called The Jacobin. It's all coming up in the course of the next 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Talk Radio.
Thank you.